Reach for a second and think about the most ordinary thing in the world. Every grown woman you have ever met wears one. Your mother did. Your grandmother did. The woman who rang up your groceries this morning, she has one on right now. And not a single one of them gives it a second thought. Now here is the thing that should stop you cold. Women have walked this earth for 200,000 years. Before the elastic, before the little hooks, before the padded cups. What in the world were they using to hold everything up? Sit down, because the answer is stranger and a little darker than you would ever guess. Athens, around 400 years before Christ. Picture a woman getting dressed before dawn. No store, no catalog, no rack of sizes to choose from. What she reaches for is a long strip of wool, or sometimes linen, and she wraps it around her chest, around, and ties it off or pins it at her back. The Greeks had a word for it, several actually. Apodesmos, mastodeton. They all mean the same plain thing, breastband. That was the technology. A bandage, basically. Some women wore it for support when they moved, some for modesty. The wealthy ones had theirs made of soft leather, even decorated. But underneath the fancy version and the plain version, it was the same idea their ancestors had figured out thousands of years before. Wrap it, tie it, hope for the best. Then come the Romans. And the Romans do what Romans always do. They take a Greek idea and they make it a project. They called their band the strophium, or the memellare. And if you ever doubt that this was a real, everyday thing, go look at a floor in Sicily. There is a villa there, the Villa Romana del Casal, and on one of its floors is a mosaic from the 4th century, made in the time of the Emperor Diocletian. People call it the Bikini Girls. 10 young Roman women, frozen in colored stone for 1,700 years, running, lifting weights, throwing a discus. And every one of them is wearing a breastband and a little bottom. The oldest gym photo in human history. But here is where the head starts to shake. Because the Romans had opinions about women's bodies, strong ones. To a fashionable Roman, large breasts were not beautiful. They were comical. The poet Martial built whole jokes around mocking women for them, the way a cruel man at a dinner party does when he thinks he is being funny. So what do you think they did about it? They bound the girls. Young Roman girls had bands wrapped tight across their chests, not for support, but to stop them from growing. The belief was that if you compressed a girl early enough and tight enough, she would stay small, and small was lovely. Think about that for a second. A child told that the shape her own body was trying to become was a thing to be prevented. Strapped down so she would not become herself. And before you tell yourself that was just the ancient world being the ancient world, we did not get better, we got worse. Because then came the corset. Around the year 1500, the corset arrives. And for the next 400 years, it becomes nearly mandatory for any respectable woman in the West. And this thing was not soft. It was a cage. Stiffened first with whalebone, the long, flexible plates from the mouth of a whale, and later with strips of steel. Laced up the back and pulled tight, then tighter still. Women laced themselves down to the waists the human body was never built to have. And the body, being a body, fought back. Fainting spells, cracked ribs, trouble breathing. Doctors of the day wrote that the lacing could squeeze the organs inside right out of their proper places. For 4 centuries, the price of looking the part was rearranging your own insides every single morning. And the medieval women in between those two worlds? We barely knew what they wore at all. The old written records mention something with a name that tells you everything about how romantic history really is. They called them, and I am not making this up, bags for the breasts. Poetry it was not. If a 1,000-year headshake is your kind of thing, do me a favor and subscribe. This channel digs up the strange, buried machinery of how ordinary life actually got built. And there is a new story every week. Now, let me tell you how all of this finally ended. For the longest time, here is the story historians told themselves. The breastband, then the corset, then nothing with real cups or structure until the 1800s. They were sure of it. People thought they had the whole picture. They were wrong. In the summer of 2008, in a place called Lengberg Castle, tucked into the mountains of East Tyrol in Austria, builders were renovating the old stone. Under a floor on the second story, they found a sealed vault that had been packed with rubbish centuries earlier and forgotten. Dry straw, broken wood, old leather shoes, and textiles. Thousands of scraps of fabric. And there, in the garbage, were 4 linen bras. Real ones, with cut cups, with shoulder straps. One of them so close to a modern bra that if you laid it on a shelf in a department store today, you would have to look twice. A researcher named Beatrix Nutz from the University of Innsbruck looked at these things and could barely believe the date staring back at her. Nobody thought cupped bras existed this early, so they sent the fibers to a laboratory in Zurich for carbon dating, half expecting to be told they were wrong. The lab came back. The 1400s. These bras were 500 years old. Some woman in a cold castle in the 1400s was wearing a fitted bra with cups, while the history books insisted such a thing would not be invented for another 4 centuries. She had no idea she was a secret. She was just getting dressed. But a forgotten bra in a wall does not change the world. For that, you need someone stubborn and a little luck. The first real attempt came from Paris, 1889. A French corset maker named Herminie Cadolle looked at the cage every woman was strapping into and decided to cut it in half. The bottom stayed a corset. The top became a separate piece that held the bust up from the shoulders instead of crushing it from below. She called it the well-being, and it caused a sensation at the Great Paris Exposition. But it stayed a luxury, a quiet little secret among rich women who could afford a Paris atelier. The version that broke the door down came from a frustrated 19-year-old at a party. Her name was Mary Phelps Jacob, New York around 1910. She bought a beautiful sheer evening gown, and when she put her stiff whalebone corset on underneath it, the whalebone poked right through the fabric for everyone to see. So she called her maid over, grabbed 2 silk handkerchiefs and some pink ribbon, and the 2 of them stitched together something soft, light, and invisible under the dress. She went to her party, and she could breathe. She could dance. Her friends saw it and wanted one. Then one day, a stranger sent her a note asking if she would make one too, and offered her a whole $1 for it. That was the moment she understood. In 1914, she patented it, the backless brassiere, the first patent of its kind in America. And here is the surprising part. She got bored of the bra business, sold the patent to a corset company for $1,500, and sailed off to Paris to become a publisher, where she printed the early work of Ernest Hemingway and James Joyce. The woman who helped free the world from the corset thought it was about the least interesting thing she ever did. So what finally killed the corset for good? Not fashion, a war. 1917. America enters the First World War, and the country needs metal. All of it. And somebody does the math and realizes that the steel stays inside millions of women's corsets add up to a mountain. So the government asks American women to stop buying them, to give up the corset for the war effort. And the story goes that they freed up around 28,000 tons of steel. Enough, they said, to build 2 battleships. 2 battleships out of corsets. The corset went to war, and it never came home. Now look at you. You walk into a shop, or you tap a screen, and you pick the thing right off a rack. It comes in your size, a size somebody standardized for you back in the 1930s, so you would not have to guess. It is soft. It stretches. It has those little hooks that took the human race thousands of years to think up. You put it on in 4 seconds and you never think about it again. But every one of those 4 seconds is sitting on top of something. a Greek woman wrapping wool around herself in the dark, a Roman girl bound tight so she would stay small, a medieval seamstress hand-stitching cups by candlelight into a thing she called a bag, a woman lacing herself until she could not breathe for 400 years running, a bored teenager with 2 handkerchiefs and a maid, and a world war. All of that, so that you would not have to think about it at all. And that is the strange, comic, slightly horrifying truth of nearly everything you own. The most ordinary object on your body has more blood and absurdity and accident in its history than most kings. People strapped down their daughters. People rearranged their own organs for a smaller waist. People threw their own underwear into a war. And out the other end of all that madness came a soft little thing you can buy for the price of a sandwich and forget you are wearing. So the next time you reach for it without thinking, think just for a second. Think about how insane the road was. Think about how clever and desperate and ridiculous the people who came before you really were. And then thank whatever you thank that you were born now and not then. They were out of their minds, those people. Bless them. They were also the ones who figured it out. Sleep well.